You're not trying at all, Victor. Ryan's voice sounded coldly professional through the speakers of my laptop. The numbers don't lie. Your productivity metrics have been consistently below target during the last quarter. I stared at my screen in disbelief. The Zoom grid showed Ryan's impassive face next to 3 HR representatives I barely recognized. My hand instinctively touched the headscarf, a navy blue one today, covering what was left of my hair after 6 months of chemotherapy. I've maintained all client relationships, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the way my heart was hammering in my chest. Garrison Publishing renewed its contract last week. Riverside Hotels expanded its order by 30%. Ryan sighed, the sound distorted by the speakers. Relationship management isn't enough. We need people who can drive quantifiable growth. The executive team has made the difficult decision to terminate your employment, effective immediately. My name is Victor Reese, 42, Marketing Director at Pinnacle Hospitality Group. Or at least it was until this moment. For 15 years, I've helped hotels and resorts across the country build their brands and increase bookings. Even during the 6 months since my colon cancer diagnosis, I didn't miss a single day of work, scheduling chemo treatments for Friday afternoon so I could recover over the weekend. I see, I said calmly, although I didn't understand a thing. Is there anything else? The HR representative, Jocelyn, intervened with rehearsed efficiency. We'll send you your final paycheck next Friday, along with information about the continuation of your health insurance. Your laptop and company phone will be remotely deactivated at the end of this call. Please send them back within 5 working days. I nodded, thinking of my 2 children who would soon be home from school. How would I tell them? How would my wife and I manage the medical bills without my insurance? Thank you for the opportunity, I said automatically, years of professionalism taking over where emotion threatened to break through. I wish you all the best. As I clicked the Leave Meeting button, a notification popped up on my screen, an email from Anthony Werner, CEO of one of our largest hotel clients. Looking forward to our strategy session next week. Your ideas have been invaluable during our rebranding. They didn't know. My clients hadn't been informed that I was being let go. As I closed my laptop, my phone vibrated with a message from Lucas, my colleague and closest friend at Pinnacle. Call me now. When I did, his voice was tense with anger. They've just announced your dismissal at the general meeting. Ryan said you've been underperforming for months and that they couldn't carry deadweight during a growth phase. Victor, it was brutal. I felt suddenly cold. This wasn't just a dismissal, it was character assassination, and I had the feeling that the worst was yet to come. My journey with Pinnacle Hospitality Group began 15 years ago, when I joined as a marketing coordinator fresh out of graduate school. The company was small then, just 20 employees helping independent hotels compete with large chains. I grew along with Pinnacle, eventually leading a team of 10 and managing our relationships with higher-value clients. Under George, the previous marketing director who became my mentor, we thrived. When he retired 3 years ago, promoting me was a natural decision. My department consistently delivered results, with customer retention rates above 90% and year-on-year revenue growth exceeding targets. Everything changed 6 months ago, with a double whammy, my cancer diagnosis and the arrival of Ryan Turner as the new operations director. The diagnosis came first stage 2 colon cancer, requiring immediate surgery followed by aggressive chemotherapy. I told George first, who was still on the board despite his retirement. His support was immediate and unwavering. Take all the time you need, he assured me. Your job will be waiting. But I didn't take time off. Instead, I worked around my treatment schedule, attending cancer center meetings when necessary, never missing a client call or a deadline. If you're enjoying this story of overcoming and corporate revenge, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow more cases of injustice turned into triumph. 2 months after my treatment began, Ryan joined Pinnacle, brought in by investors to optimize operations ahead of a potential acquisition. In his early 40s, with an MBA from an elite school, Ryan introduced new performance tracking systems and productivity metrics. Initially, I welcomed the framework with enthusiasm, believing it would highlight my department's strengths. The first warning sign came during a leadership meeting, when Ryan questioned my decision to assign our latest client to Jamie, my most experienced team member. Jamie's metrics are below average, he pointed out, gesturing to a dashboard I'd never seen before. Wouldn't Tasha be a better option? Her numbers are significantly higher. I explained that metrics didn't capture Jamie's relationship-building skills, which were exactly what this client needed. Ryan nodded, but I caught a glimmer of irritation in his eyes. What I didn't know then was that this situation was about to get a lot worse before it got better. And I was already starting to plan my response, even without realizing it. The morning after my resignation, I woke up early. My body was still programmed for working hours, after all. Next to me, my wife Sophia was sound asleep, exhausted after our nightly conversation about finances and health insurance options. I slipped out of bed, made some coffee, and opened my personal laptop. First, I needed to understand the extent of the damage. I logged into LinkedIn to update my profile and found 3 messages from clients who had somehow heard about my departure. Their confusion was evident. There had been no warning, no transition plan. "Everything okay? We were counting on your guidance for our summer campaign," wrote the marketing manager at Harborview Resorts. I crafted careful, professional responses to the end, making sure to connect them with appropriate contacts at Pinnacle. But each message reinforced the growing knot of anger in my stomach. These were relationships I had built and nurtured for years, some even during hospital stays, and Ryan had cut them off without a thought. While browsing through my emails, I found a message from George, marked 1:23 a.m., "Just heard. Call me, we need to talk." When I reached him an hour later, his normally calm voice was tense with controlled fury. "This is unforgivable, Victor. The board wasn't consulted about your dismissal." Ryan presented it as a fait accompli during yesterday's executive briefing. "Can they do that? Fire a director without board approval?" I asked. "Technically, yes. Ryan has the authority to hire and fire, but it's a terrible decision, and the way he's handling it is even worse." George paused. "He's submitting his sick leave as absenteeism." "Medical leave? I never took leave." I protested. "I worked through every treatment." "I know, but Ryan is telling a different story. According to him, your performance has suffered for months because you've been distracted by personal issues." The injustice stole my breath away. I had meticulously documented every project, every interaction with clients, precisely to avoid this kind of misrepresentation. Even on my worst days, when chemo made me nauseous and exhausted, I kept my responsibilities. "There's more," George continued. "There will be a restructuring of the marketing department. Ryan is bringing in someone from his previous company to replace him. According to the timetable, this was planned weeks ago." The realization hit me like physical pain. I hadn't been fired for performance problems. Those were just the excuse. Ryan had wanted me gone from the start, probably building a case against me while I was fighting for my life. "What can I do?" I asked, hating the helplessness in my voice. "For now, focus on your health and family," George advised. "But document everything, your achievements, the timing of your resignation over your treatment, any communication that contradicts Ryan's claims." After he hung up, I sat motionless at the kitchen table, watching the morning light creep across the floor. I'd given Pinnacle 15 years of my life, worked through my cancer treatment without complaint, and in return, been dismissed with a lie. For the first time since my diagnosis, I allowed myself to cry, not from sadness, but from pure enlightening anger. What Ryan didn't know was that I had always kept 2 work diaries. An official one on the company laptop and a personal one, detailing absolutely everything. Years of well-founded corporate paranoia had taught me to always have insurance. In my personal file, I had screenshots, emails forwarded to my personal account, recordings of meetings, allowed in our state with one party's consent, and meticulous records of every metric. A week later, I received a certified letter from Pinnacle's legal department alleging that I had violated company policy by conducting personal business during work hours, specifically, attending medical appointments while registered as working. They demanded salary reimbursement for these hours, threatening legal action if I didn't comply. It was impressively vindictive and strategically timed, when I was most financially vulnerable. I called George immediately. "They're trying to get me to pay back wages for working during chemo. Can they do that?" "They're bluffing, trying to intimidate you," his reply was firm. "Don't answer yet. I'm meeting with several board members tomorrow who weren't aware of the full circumstances of your dismissal. That could change things." Hope flashed briefly, but experience had taught me not to count on corporate decency. Instead, I turned to what I could control. I spent the evening organizing my extensive documentation, performance appraisals, client testimonials, project results, and detailed records of my work during treatment. I had been meticulous out of professional habit, never imagining that I would need these records for self-defense. As I compiled the evidence, a different kind of strategy began to form in my mind. One that wouldn't depend on George's influence or the council's conscience. What Ryan didn't realize was that, while he thought he was destroying me, he was only giving me all the tools for his own downfall. That evening, I received an unexpected email from my former assistant, Rodrigo. "Victor, I shouldn't be telling you this, but they're dismantling everything you've built. The new director is eliminating all personalized approaches to clients. They're already asking about your treatment schedule, whether you've worked during medical appointments. They're building some kind of case retroactively." I smiled for the first time in days. Ryan was digging his own grave, and I already had the shovel ready to help him finish the job. The hope George had offered proved empty. 2 days later, he called me with heavy disappointment in his voice. "The board is backing Ryan's decision. They're focused on the potential acquisition and don't want to create internal disruption." "I'm sorry, Victor. Did they understand that I worked during cancer treatment? That I never took sick leave?" I asked, struggling to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "They recognized your dedication, but in the end they left it up to Ryan to evaluate your performance." George sighed. "There's something else you should know. I resigned from the board in protest." This shocked me. George had helped found Pinnacle and stayed on the board after retirement out of loyalty to the company he helped build. "You didn't have to do that," I said softly. "Yes, I did. This is no longer the company I built." He paused. "Victor, there's something bigger going on. I've been looking into Ryan's track record at his previous company, Meridian Hotels. He executed a similar strategy, cutting experienced directors just before they received significant stock options, then bringing in his people at lower salaries. Exactly what happened to me, I realized. My shares would be consolidated next month." "Precisely. And there's more. The company that's planning to acquire Pinnacle, Axion Hospitality Group. Ryan has connections there too. He worked with their CEO at Meridian." The pieces fell into place with nauseating clarity. "He's positioning himself for a position in the merged company," I concluded. "Making himself valuable by cutting costs and bringing in loyal people. And inflating short-term metrics at the expense of customer relationships and long-term health," George added darkly. "It's a pattern." That evening, I received an unexpected email from Lucas containing a forwarded message from Ryan to the marketing team. "As we implement our standardized approach, I expect resistance from legacy customers. This is normal and should not cause concern. Those unwilling to adapt to our more efficient model may not be suitable for Pinnacle's future. Consider this an opportunity to identify which customer relationships truly drive value versus those maintained by historical inertia." Attached was a spreadsheet categorizing clients into keep and dispensable columns. Garrison Publishing, despite its significant revenue contribution, was labeled expendable, presumably because it required customized services that didn't fit Ryan's standardized approach. In the email thread, I noticed a message to Pinnacle's investors explaining the strategic workforce optimization that included my resignation. Ryan had blatantly misrepresented my performance and contribution, claiming that the marketing department had been underperforming for years, despite documentation showing that we consistently exceeded targets under my leadership. At that moment, something changed inside me. This wasn't just about my unfair dismissal, it was about the deliberate dismantling of a company I helped build, the callous disregard for customers who trusted us, and the manipulation of people who deserved the truth. I compiled a comprehensive dossier entitled simply The Complete Record, telling the true story of Pinnacle's marketing department, complete with performance data, customer retention statistics, revenue growth figures, and testimonials. I included a timeline of my cancer treatment along with documentation of projects completed during that period, presenting the facts without comment. The evidence spoke for itself. For years, I had occasionally interacted with representatives of the 3 main investment firms backing Pinnacle. I had their contact information, but to use it would be to cross a line that could not be undone. While I was deliberating, another email arrived from Rodrigo. "It's getting worse. Ryan just fired Jamie for insubordination after she questioned the new approach with Garrison. They're talking about leaving. 3 other clients too." Jamie had been at Pinnacle for 12 years. I had 2 children at college. My decision crystallized. I would send my documentation to the investors, not as an act of revenge, but as a necessary correction to the misinformation they had received. I drafted a calm and factual cover letter, scheduling the email to be sent the next morning. At 9 a.m. sharp, my email and its comprehensive attachments arrived in the inboxes of Pinnacle's 3 main investors. The response was swift and seismic. 10:30 a.m., George called. The investors are in an emergency meeting with the board. Your email caused a firestorm. Noon, Lucas texted. Ryan was called into a video conference with the investors. He looked like he was going to be sick. 3 p.m., William Garrison, CEO of Garrison Publishing, forwarded an email he had received from Pinnacle's main investor requesting an urgent discussion about Garrison's relationship with the company. Similar emails were apparently sent to all major clients. They're in damage control mode, commented William. Too late, in my opinion. 17:15, a formal email arrived from Eleanor Winters, managing partner of Pinnacle's largest investment firm. Mr. Rees, thank you for bringing these matters to our attention. We take the issues raised very seriously and have initiated an immediate review. I would appreciate the opportunity to speak with you directly. Please contact my assistant to schedule an appointment. I scheduled the call for the following morning, so I turned my attention to another correspondence. William Garrison had sent me a formal offer to join his company as marketing director, with full health insurance and flexible working arrangements to accommodate my ongoing treatment. My brother is a 5-year cancer survivor, he explained. His health is a priority, not a liability. That evening, as my family celebrated my new job over dinner, my phone vibrated with a company-wide email from Pinnacle that had been forwarded by several former colleagues. Effective immediately, Ryan Turner is no longer with Pinnacle Hospitality Group. Further organizational announcements will follow. Please direct any customer concerns to your department director. The message was brief, corporate, and absolutely devastating in its implications. The truth, it seemed, still had power after all. But how exactly would this affect Pinnacle's future? And what would happen to all those Ryan had hurt along the way? I would discover in the coming weeks that the answer would be even more satisfying than I could have imagined. 3 months later, I sat in my new office at Garrison Publishing, reviewing the marketing strategy for their upcoming literary-themed resort in Santa Fe. My health had improved significantly, maintenance therapy was working, and my oncologist was optimistic about my prognosis. The Pinnacle story continued to unfold without me, although I heard the details through various channels. The investors had installed an interim management team and broken off acquisition negotiations with Axion. An internal investigation revealed that Ryan's optimization strategy had been specifically designed to inflate short-term metrics at the expense of long-term customer relationships, precisely to make the company attractive for acquisition. Several dismissed employees, including Jamie, were reinstated with back pay. The standardized marketing approach was abandoned in favor of the personalized customer strategies I had developed. The company was slowly rebuilding the trust that had been damaged during Ryan's brief but destructive tenure. You essentially saved the company, George told me over our monthly lunch. He had been invited back to the board, now as chairman. When the investors saw the documentation you compiled, they realized that they were being manipulated into a merger that would only benefit Ryan and a few Axion executives. What about the customers? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Garrison was the first to threaten to cut ties, but not the last. After the story leaked, George smiled. Let's just say that Ryan inadvertently made you look even more valuable by trying to denigrate you. As for Ryan, I heard that he had left the state, his reputation in the hotel industry irrevocably tarnished. A former colleague forwarded me an email from an executive recruiting firm informally warning about hiring Ryan, citing his catastrophic mismanagement and significant ethical failure at Pinnacle. The video of the meeting where Ryan fired me, which I had legally recorded, turned out to be one of the most compelling pieces of evidence against him. Not only did it demonstrate his misrepresentation of my performance, but also his complete lack of empathy in firing an employee undergoing cancer treatment. Eleanor Winters, the investing partner, had offered a formal apology and even suggested that I return to Pinnacle in an executive position. I politely declined, having found something better at Garrison, a company that valued not only my professional contribution, but my humanity too. The board was so focused on the numbers that they lost sight of the people who really built the business, Eleanor admitted during our conversation. Your case was an important wake-up call. At Garrison's new headquarters, where I now oversaw a growing team, I implemented flexible working policies specifically designed for employees with medical conditions. William Garrison fully supported the initiative. Our retention rate has increased by 22% since you arrived, William noted during our quarterly review. And customer satisfaction is at record levels. Jamie, who I had just hired for Garrison, smiled from across the conference room. Who knew that treating people like human beings was such a good business strategy? My phone vibrated with a text from Sophia. Don't forget dinner with the kids at 6:30 p.m., celebrating your last treatment. I smiled, gathering my things to leave early. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, a major campaign launch, a potential expansion of Garrison's literary hotel concept to international markets, and a full life beyond cancer and corporate politics. 6 months after my resignation, I received an unexpected email. It was from Ryan. Victor, you probably hate me and you have every right to. What I did was unforgivable. I'm starting therapy and I've realized that I need to try to repair some of the damage I've caused. I don't expect forgiveness, I just wanted you to know that your actions forced me to confront who I've become. I didn't reply. Some bridges, once burned, don't need to be rebuilt. This wasn't a story about forgiveness, it was about justice, survival and reinvention. On my desk, the photo of my family smiled at me. Next to it, a small crystal trophy that William had given me after our most recent record-breaking campaign. To Victor, who taught us that integrity isn't just a virtue, it's a competitive advantage. The past couldn't be changed, but it had led me here, to a place where my work was valued, my health was prioritized, and the future promised rather than threatened. Would revenge be taking Ryan down? Maybe for some people. But I discovered something more powerful, that true revenge is not just exposing the lie, but living so abundantly that we turn our pain into purpose. Ryan dug his own professional grave with his actions. I just provided the shovel and let the truth do the rest. As I walked out of the office, I passed the company's new banner, Building Stories That Matter. I smiled. That was exactly what I had done, turned my story of unfair dismissal into an opportunity for positive change, not just for me, but for everyone around me. Some people think that the best revenge is success. I say it's the truth, because once revealed, it does its job all by itself. And unlike revenge, the truth frees you to move on. If you enjoyed this true story of corporate justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of ordinary people who have found extraordinary ways to overcome injustice. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about striking back, but about rebuilding, not just your life, but your legacy.